The emergency department was bright, cold, and too clean. White curtains, silver rails, the antiseptic bite of disinfectant and fear. I walked to the desk. "I'm Naomi Reed. My husband, Adrian, was brought in." The charge nurse gave me the kind of look that is half pity, half curiosity. "Room 7. The physician will be with you shortly." Through the skinny window in the door, I saw Adrian writhing on a gurney, his face a mix of sweat and shock while two nurses irrigated something below a blue drape. A gray-haired doctor looked up as I entered. "Mrs. Reed, I'm Dr. Harrison." "What happened?" I asked, voice steady in a way that startled even me. "Your husband arrived about an hour ago with significant chemical burns," he said carefully. He glanced toward the drape. "In a highly sensitive area. We're controlling pain and flushing the tissue, but he needs overnight observation." I blinked. "Chemical burns? How?" Dr. Harrison shifted, professional neutrality straining against awkwardness. "He reported that during relations with his wife, he experienced a sudden, intense burning. That's his account." I kept my face neutral. "That's strange. I haven't seen my husband since yesterday morning. He was at work all day and into the night." The room went quiet enough to hear the monitor's soft metronome. Adrian made a ragged sound, eyes darting up to mine. Pain, shame, fear. "Naomi," he began. "Mrs. Reed," Dr. Harrison said gently, "perhaps we should step." The door burst open. A young woman stumbled in, mascara smeared into charcoal half-moons, a too-short dress and trembling heels announcing Saturday night more than any staff meeting ever could. "Adrian!" she cried. "Oh my God, are you okay?" I looked at her, then at my husband, then back. "And you are?" She froze, finally registering me. I'm Brittany." "Brittany." The name tasted like ash. "And how do you know my husband?" She paled, turning toward Adrian as if he might still save her. Husband? You said you were separated." I laughed, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. "Separated? We had dinner with our 11-year-old daughter last night." Her lower lip trembled. You said you didn't have kids." "He says a lot of things," I said evenly. "Most of them lies." I turned my head. "Isn't that right, Adrian?" He flinched. Sweat slicked his temples. "Naomi, please, I can explain." "Explain what?" I asked. "The condoms you bought 3 days ago? The Saturdays at the office? Or the fact that your assistant just introduced herself in your hospital room?" "Mrs. Reed," Dr. Harrison interjected more firmly now, "we need to finish treating our patient. I'm going to ask everyone who isn't staff to wait outside." "I'm his wife, I said. "I'm staying." "And I'm his girlfriend," Brittany blurted, chin lifting like a dare. I faced her fully, studied the contour kit cheekbones, the borrowed confidence, the raw youth that believes good intentions erase bad choices. "No," I said softly. "You're a mistake he decided to make. Now both of you get the consequences." Her eyes filled. "What does that mean?" "It means whatever happened to him tonight, he brought it here himself." I looked back to Dr. Harrison. "I'll be in the waiting room. Take your time." I left with the steady click of my heels and the controlled breathing of a diver between waves. The waiting room was a fishbowl of bad nights. Blank TVs, old magazines, a vending machine humming like a low fever. I sat and opened my phone. First, screenshots of the incoming call, the hospital name glowing on the lock screen. Then I woke my laptop. Months ago, when Adrian asked me to fix his contacts, I synced his line to our family cloud. At the time, it had felt like tidying a drawer. Now it was a file cabinet of truth, texts stacked like bricks. 6 months worth. "Miss you, B. Saturday night, same hotel. Soon as I get this promotion, I'm filing. We'll be free." Each line a cut that didn't bleed. I saved everything to a folder titled A, just A. No one snooping later would know it stood for amputation. An hour passed, then another. The door to the treatment area swung open, and Dr. Harrison approached, hands in the pockets of his white coat. "Your husband is stable," he said. "The burns are treatable, though significant." "What caused it?" I asked. "We've sent samples to the lab, but preliminary testing shows traces of capsaicin, pepper extract, on a condom." I lifted my brows slightly. On the condom, yes. He held my gaze. Do you have any idea how that might have occurred? A new lubricant? A novelty product? I have no idea, I said. Perhaps a manufacturer defect. I suppose you'll want the lot number. Could be a class action. Something like doubt flickered through his calm. He couldn't prove anything, and we both knew it. Can I see him? I asked. He's been asking for the other woman. A small turn of his mouth. Do you want me to tell him you're here? No, I said. Tell him his wife went home. I'll see him when he's ready to tell the truth. I stood, thanked the doctor with a nod, and walked into the cold slice of night like it belonged to me. Sunday morning rose too fast and too slow. Maya was at the table, legs folded crisscross on the chair, spoon tapping cereal. Mrs. Chen had left a sticky note. She woke around 6. I gave her toast. Call if you need me, Lillian. Where's Dad? Maya asked around a mouthful. Work ran late, I said. The lie slid out like a bead of watered-down glass. I hated it. I needed it. He'll be back later. The phone vibrated. Adrian. I let it ring 3 times. Naomi, he rasped. Can you pick me up? Where's Brittany? Silence. That's what I thought, I said. She left you there, didn't she? I'm sorry, he whispered. For cheating? Or for getting caught? For everything. Please, I need to come home. We need to talk. I looked at my daughter, her ponytail off-center, her feet swinging, a sugar comet on her cheek. How do you tell an 11-year-old that her father detonated the family from the inside? Fine, I said. 30 minutes. I dropped Maya at her best friend's for a play date I invented on the spot, then drove to the hospital the long way, every green light, another count to 10. Adrian was waiting in the discharge bay in a wheelchair, looking 50 in a 38-year-old face. Ash-gray skin, eyes ringed with exhaustion. The slight flinch of humiliation when I took the handles and pushed. At home, I helped him to the sofa. He moved like a brittle thing, every breath a protest. I poured water and came back to find real tears tracing his cheeks. I don't know where to start, he said. With the truth, I said, sitting across from him. All of it. How long? He swallowed. 6 months. How did it start? She was new, he said. She paid attention to me. I felt seen, younger, important. It's stupid. It's cliché, I said. Middle-age crisis, young woman, office hallways. The plot writes itself. He winced. I felt invisible here, Naomi. You were busy with Maya, with your book club, the charity committee. We stopped connecting. Brittany made me feel, spare me the poetry. What did you tell her about me? He stared at his hands. That we were separated, that we didn't have kids. And that you loved her? A beat. Yes. I nodded, as if he'd confirmed a weather report. What else did you lie about? He was quiet so long the refrigerator's faint hum became a siren. Money, he said finally. My stomach turned. How much? I used the joint account for dinners, hotels, gifts. I thought I'd pay it back after the promotion. How much? 15, he faltered. 1,000. I opened our banking app, scrolled through line items that had been anonymous noise until last night. A hotel downtown 3 Saturday nights in a row. A jewelry store whose name I'd only seen in glossy magazines. Restaurants where the check wouldn't have had room for a kid's menu. There's no paying this back, I said. There's no next month. There's no we. He broke then, the composure cracking. Don't say that. We can fix this. Counseling. I'll do anything. I love you. You love the service I provide, I said, voice flat. You love the stability while you chase a thrill. You love having both. That's not true. Did you use protection every time? I asked, and for the first time something like fear crossed his face. What? A simple question. Did you use a condom every time with Brittany? Yes, he said quickly. I would never risk. How thoughtful. I stood. Pack a bag. Naomi. Pack. A bag. His eyes went wide, boyish in a way that used to manipulate me. Where am I supposed to go? I can barely walk. Call a car. Go to Brittany's. Go to a motel. Sleep in your office. Oh, wait. I let it trail like a knife through silk. 30 minutes. Upstairs, I pulled 2 suitcases from the closet and fed them his life. Shirts, shoes, belts, cologne. Downstairs, he made calls, voice low, bargaining. 20 minutes later, I dragged the bags to the foyer. No one will take you, I guessed. Brittany blocked me. He tried to smile. It failed. My brother's traveling. There's a hotel 3 blocks away. I'll drive you. Thank you, he said. I'm doing this for Maya's sleep, not for you. We didn't speak in the car. I pulled up under the portico where a bellman pretended not to hear a marriage ending. I unloaded the bags. I am sorry, Adrian said, standing there with his life in 2 rectangles and a hospital bracelet still on his wrist. I'm sorry too, I said. Sorry I wasted 12 years. Back home, the house felt different, like someone had cracked a window in a room that had been closed too long. I set my phone on the counter, took a breath, and began. I started with the filing cabinet. 3 years of bank statements. I highlighted every strange charge, every cash withdrawal that didn't match a grocery run or soccer registration. Then credit cards I didn't know about, his name only, bloomed into a bouquet of hotel folios and conference flights that matched the nights he claimed to be underwater at work. I scanned and saved, labeled and dated. Next, his laptop. His password was Maya's birthday, because of course it was. I typed sus12 with 2 digits more and hit enter. His work email populated. Search, Brittany. 532 results. I read, professional turned flirty turned anatomical. I saved what mattered legally and refused to give the rest room in my head. There was a folder on his desktop called New Life. I opened it to find listings for high-rise apartments with floor-to-ceiling windows and rent that could pay for 2 semesters of college. Bank statements for accounts I'd never seen, 8 months of siphoned funds, a total north of $40,000. I sat back, the room tilting a degree, like a ship turning hard to starboard. This wasn't an affair. It was a plan. My phone buzzed. Please call me. We can work this out. I deleted the message and called the one person who never needed context to run toward me. My office in 20, my friend Nicole said. We're starting your war. She arrived in 15 with coffee and a fan of business cards. Top 3 divorce sharks in the county, she said, fanning them like a magician. We call all of them today so he can't. Isn't that expensive? Consults are free. Also, he hid money. We're going to find it. You'll be fine. Private investigator? I said, surprising us both with how quickly I'd leapt from shock to strategy. Already texted one, she said. Frank Rodriguez, retired detective. Discreet, relentless. By noon, I had 3 consultations on the calendar. By late afternoon, I had Frank for 9:01 a.m. Tuesday, and a new email folder named Discovery that would make any paralegal weep with gratitude. Maya came home, dumping a backpack and a trail of glitter. We made grilled cheese. She told me about a volcano model she wanted to build for the science fair. Can Dad help? She asked. He's really busy right now, I said. But I can. You're better at this anyway, she grinned. And it was supposed to be sweet. It landed like a verdict. After she went to bed, the house hummed like a machine idling. I opened Adrian's email again and kept digging. An exchange with his boss about a promotion next month. A 30% raise. A note to his accountant with the subject line, Asset Protection Strategy. He'd asked about minimizing spousal claims, shifting retirement funds, shielding investments, in the event of a contentious filing. He had been preparing to cut me out slowly, cleanly, and completely, right up until the moment a different kind of heat changed the plot. At midnight, I closed the laptop. The kitchen clock ticked toward tomorrow. The phone buzzed on the counter. An unknown number. This is Brittany. Can we please talk? I stared at the text until the letters blurred. Then I typed 3 words. There's nothing to discuss. I hit send, blocked the number, turned off the lights, and climbed the stairs to a house that, for the first time in a long time, felt like mine. Frank Rodriguez chose a coffee shop 3 blocks from my house. The kind with black and white tile floors and a chalkboard menu in a barista's loopy handwriting. He stood when I walked in, late 50s, squared shoulders under a dark sport coat, eyes like a camera set to manual, always adjusting, always in focus. Mrs. Reed, he said, shaking my hand, Nicole speaks highly of you. She speaks highly of you, too, I answered. We took a corner booth. I slid a manila folder across the table. Printouts from the bank, the credit cards I didn't know existed, select emails, the text threads I'd harvested while the hospital smell was still in my clothes. Frank read without hurry, turning pages with a mechanic's patience, occasionally making a mark with a slim pencil. This is thorough, he said finally. I was motivated. He nodded once. What do you need from me? Proof that survives court. Photos, videos, third-party records. And I want to know everything about the other woman. Brittany, where she lives, whether she has skeletons. I'm not planning a tabloid war, I added, reading his small lift of brow. I'm planning to protect my daughter and myself. Understood. He tapped the folder. I'll start with surveillance and background. Also, based on the expense patterns, you may have a corporate policy problem on your hands. Meaning, hotels, dinners, gifts run through the company as client entertainment or travel. If the client is his girlfriend, or if trips were personal, that's expense fraud. What happens if you find that? I'm obligated to report it, he said simply. It becomes their internal investigation. Might intersect with your divorce. Might not. But judges like patterns, Mrs. Reed. Dishonesty is a pattern. I signed his retainer. He slid me a carbon copy and a business card. One more thing, I said. He's expecting a promotion next month. If he thinks more money is coming, he'll try to hide more. Frank's mouth did a half smile that wasn't quite friendly and wasn't unkind. Then we work faster. My first attorney consultation was that afternoon. Patricia Kane's office lived on the 20th floor of a building made of light and glass. An assistant offered water like an offering at a temple. Patricia was mid-50s, iron gray bob, a silk blouse the exact color of a storm cloud. Her handshake said she'd won more than she'd lost. Tell me everything, she said, and I did. The black box, the hospital, Brittany, the money bleeding from accounts I once called ours. The folder on his desktop titled New Life, like an advertisement for erasing history. Patricia listened without interrupting, writing small notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she turned the pad around. She'd already divided it into columns. Fault, financial, custody, strategy. You have a strong case, or she said. In this state, fault still matters. Infidelity, financial misconduct, premeditation to deprive a spouse. We can petition for temporary orders, exclusive use of the house, child custody, freezing of certain joint assets. He's been siphoning? We claw back. If he spent marital funds on the affair, we claim dissipation. What's realistic? I asked. 60 to 70% of marital assets, primary physical custody, child support, possibly short-term maintenance depending on the income gap. If your PI finds expense fraud, we add that to the narrative. Not to punish, but to demonstrate risk and poor judgment. Will this take a year or already? I asked. It can, she said, but men in freefall often settle fast. Consequences make cowards practical. I thought of Adrian in the discharge bay, hospital bracelet catching the fluorescent light. Good, I said. Practical works. Retainer is $5,000, she said, matter of fact. We'll file by week's end. I signed with a hand that felt both foreign and mine. On my way down in the elevator, I texted Nicole. Shark retained. Filing soon. She replied with a string of knife emojis and a heart. Monday night, after Maya's bath and the ritual debate about whether a volcano should spew red paint or baking soda foam? Both, Maya decided, the CEO of her own science. I opened Adrian's laptop again. I traced a dripping line of money from our savings into 2 accounts bearing only his name, then into a brokerage I'd never heard him mention. I made a spreadsheet, columns for date, amount, destination, note. On a separate tab, I built a timeline. 3 days ago, condoms. 2 days ago, Saturday client. Last night, ER. Today, hire PI, retain attorney. It looked like a thin police blotter. 1 woman, 1 house, 1 day at a time. At 10:12 p.m., Frank texted, he met Brittany at 6:40. Italian place on 3rd. Have photos. 7:55, checked into Riverview Hotel. Registered as client entertainment. Copy obtained. I stared at the phone, at the words client entertainment, at the line items I'd highlighted the night before. Whatever pity had tried to bloom in me curled black around the edges and blew away as ash. Thank you, I wrote. Keep going. By Thursday, Patricia had drafted the petition. I read it at the kitchen table while Maya built a papier-mâché volcano next to my elbow and hummed to herself. The petition was clinical and devastating. It arranged the wreckage into sentences that sounded like fact because they were. Causes of action: dissolution of marriage on grounds of adultery and financial misconduct. Temporary orders requested. Exclusive use of marital residence. Primary physical custody. Child support. Freeze of joint accounts. Discovery of hidden assets. Factual background: 12-year marriage. 1 child. Wife as primary caregiver. Husband's admitted infidelity. Dissipation of approximately $15,000 in marital funds on non-marital purposes. Evidence of concealed accounts totaling $40,000. Evidence of pre-divorce asset shielding. Is it weird that reading this makes me feel calm? I asked Patricia on the phone. It's normal. Paper turns chaos into lines you can act on. We'll have him served at work tomorrow. The element of surprise tends to focus the mind. Will Brittany be there? I heard the bite in my voice and let it remain. Not relevant, Patricia said. But if she is, it's a gift. Optics matter. Frank called that evening. Do you want the short version or the long version? Long, I said, pacing the length of my kitchen. Brittany, age 24, hired as a temp 8 months ago, made permanent 2 months in, reassigned as Adrian's personal assistant 4 months ago. The same time your timeline shows the affair accelerating. Student loans around 80K, lived modestly until 5 months ago. Now she's in a newer building, new furniture deliveries, new BMW. Title shows gift. Not from Adrian directly. Purchased with a card under his company's travel account. Reimbursed as client relations vehicle. I stopped pacing. I don't understand. Neither will Hartman Industries, he said. Also, 3 conferences billed to the company fell on weekends. The hotels were in your city. Receipts list Brittany as a client liaison. She is not a client. Report it, I said, my voice steady. You're sure? He made a plan to leave me with nothing, I said. I'm making a plan to leave him with the truth. Frank exhaled through his teeth, a soft wheeze of approval or warning. I couldn't tell which. I'll make the call. Internal audit will move fast. Friday, 10:17 a.m. A process server slid a packet of papers across the polished reception counter at Hartman Industries and asked to see Adrian Reed. 27 minutes later, after he'd signed a courier log and opened a manila envelope with hands he kept forgetting to keep still. My phone lit up. What the hell is this, Naomi? I didn't answer. Patricia had told me not to. He called again. Then again. I put the phone face down on the counter and kept slicing strawberries for Maya's lunch. At 3:12 p.m., Frank texted. He was pulled into HR at 2:45. Audit present. Compliance present. At 5:06 p.m., terminated for policy violations. Security walked him out. They keep the laptop, the phone. At 6:01 p.m., my phone rang. I answered this time. Naomi, Adrian said, voice scraped raw. What did you do? I think the better question, I said, is what you did. They fired me, he said. They said I falsified expenses. Are you insane? Do you want me in jail? Did you steal from your company to pay for your affair? I asked. Silence crackled. It wasn't like that. It looks exactly like that, I said. To them, to our court, to me. I need money for a lawyer, he said after a beat. Smaller now, shrinking by sentences. You froze the accounts. I froze the joint account, I said. My half. The half that didn't include the $40,000 you siphoned to your secret life. He made a sound like the air leaving a tire. You know about that. I know about everything, Adrian, I said. The new life folder, the apartment listings, the email to your accountant asking how to shield assets from me. The 14 times you told Brittany that as soon as your promotion hit, you'd serve me papers and make it clean. I could hear his breath stutter on the other end. I'm not your clean exit. I'm your equal. Start treating me like it. Naomi, he said, and for the first time since the hospital, it sounded like pleading, not posturing. Please, for Maya, don't do this. I'm doing this for Maya, I said, so she grows up watching consequences, so she knows her mother isn't a doormat. I ended the call. My hands shook afterward, not with fear, but with something nearer to power. Terrible, catalytic, necessary. Maya looked up from her homework. You okay? I am, I said. I actually am. That weekend, Adrian showed up at my door, and the doorbell camera caught all of it. The shifting from one foot to the other, the bruised pride in his jaw, the boxy hospital gate still shadowing him. I watched him through the peephole for a breath I made last too long. Then I opened the door but kept the chain latched. Maya, he began. She's at a sleepover on, I said. All communication goes through my attorney now. I need to see her, he said. She's my daughter. And you're her father, I said evenly, which is exactly why your choices matter. He leaned his forehead against the doorframe, a pose I'd once read as tenderness. Now I read it as a man who had run out of postures. Naomi, I'm sorry. I believe you, I said. I also believe me. Good night, Adrian. He stood there 10 seconds longer, maybe 20, the length of a habit dying. Then he left. I closed the door, slid the chain home, and leaned against the wood, not to hold myself up, but to feel the permanence of structures that were mine. Monday brought signatures. Patricia filed motions for temporary orders. A judge granted them by midweek. I had exclusive use of the house. Maya's primary residence remained with me. Adrian's contact with her would be arranged, not assumed. Our joint accounts were frozen pending discovery. Patricia's email arrived like a bell. Temporary orders entered. Next, settlement posture. He'll blink. He blinked. On Thursday, his new lawyer, someone younger than me whose website mentioned aggressive negotiation and creative problem solving in alternating bold fonts, called Patricia to explore resolution. What does he want? I asked. To keep his car and some dignity, Patricia said dryly. He'll return all diverted funds, pay child support according to guidelines, and consider short-term maintenance. He'd like you to agree to a joint statement that the divorce is amicable and due to irreconcilable differences. I laughed into the phone. Absolutely not. I assumed you'd say that, Patricia said. What do you want? The house, I said. 70% of marital assets, full custody with reasonable visitation, child support, 2 years of maintenance, and a stipulation on the record that he engaged in marital misconduct and dissipated funds. Patricia whistled softly. Spoken like a woman who has kept receipts. If he won't sign it, I said, we go to trial. And then it isn't just a stipulation on the record. It's testimony, photos, the hospital, the pepper, the works. I'll convey your terms, she said, the smile obvious in her voice, even over fiber optic cable. He'll sign. While the lawyers circled, life returned to its own weather. Maya and I built the volcano together on the dining table. Newspapers spread like a tarp under a life being remade. We painted the mountain with muddy browns and burnt oranges. We hot-glued cotton balls for smoke. We debated the realism of glitter lava and decided realism was overrated. Do you think Dad will come see it at the fair? She asked, pressing a red sequin into what she declared a magma chamber. He will, I said. He'll be there. We'll figure out the schedule. She nodded, satisfied, her forgiveness for the world still pliant and resilient. I prayed mine would be too, someday. Not yet. That night, Nicole brought over takeout and a bottle of something called Winemaker's Blend that looked like courage in glass. We ate on the couch and watched a home renovation show where beautiful people solve structural rot in 39 minutes plus ads. You're doing it, she said, pointing her chopsticks at me. You're ripping out the rotten joists. I thought I'd feel sadder, I admitted. You already did that part, she said. Now you're busy. Busy as a life raft. Just don't forget to breathe on it. Breathing, I said, inhaling until my ribs pressed against the seam of my sweater. Also plotting. She grinned. Plot away, Medea. But with spreadsheets, we clinked plastic cups. To paper cuts, she said. To paper cuts, I echoed. I knew what she meant. Big wounds get all the attention. But it's the 1,000 small slices, the petitions filed, the orders signed, the emails forwarded, the receipts photocopied, that bleed a bad marriage dry of its power. 2 weeks after service, Patricia called. He's agreed to every term, she said, and then paused, including the stipulation. On the record, I said. It wasn't a question. On the record. I sat down at my kitchen table, the same spot where I discovered the capsaicin in our spice cabinet, and decided to become an instrument instead of a victim. Outside, afternoon light pooled on the back steps like warm honey. Inside, the house exhaled. What now? I asked. We finalize. Signatures next week. Then it's done except for the corporate matter. The fraud, I said. Their problem, she said, but it won't hurt your narrative. Judges are human. They notice patterns. I thanked her, ended the call, and stared at the quiet room. The fruit bowl, the homework caddy, the ridiculous felt cactus Maya had made in art class. The stillness wasn't empty anymore. It was space. My phone buzzed on the table, a number I didn't recognize. This time I answered. Ms. Reed, a woman said, this is Melissa Nguyen from Hartman Industries Compliance Office. I wanted to let you know that our investigation into Mr. Reed's expense reporting is ongoing. We understand you may have relevant information. I might, I said. If you're willing to speak with us, we'd appreciate it. Also, we can provide documentation you may request through counsel. I glanced at the folder on the far end of the table, Discovery, and felt the tidy joy of a labeled tab. Have my lawyer contact me, I said. We'll coordinate. Of course, she said. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Me too, I said, and meant it in a way that surprised me. Not sorry like regret. Sorry like a weather report. Storms move through. Damage assessed. Rebuilding continues. The night before the signing, I stood at the stove stirring a pot of marinara, while Maya quizzed me on state capitals. Montpellier, I said, tasting for salt. The doorbell rang. From the window, I saw Brittany. For a breath, I did nothing. Then I wiped my hands on a towel and opened the door halfway, blocking the gap with my shoulder. Naomi, she said, voice small. The last time I'd seen her, hospital light had made a child of her. In daylight, she looked even younger. I'm sorry to come by. I didn't know how else to reach you. You shouldn't be here, I said. This is my home, and my daughter is inside. I know, she said quickly. I won't come in. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't know about the child. He said, I know what he said. She nodded, swallowing. I quit, she blurted, at Hartman. People looked at me like I was a cautionary tale. Good, I said, not unkindly. Be cautious. I don't expect forgiveness, Brittany said. I wanted you to hear me say that I was wrong. Not because it hurt me, because it hurt you. I held her gaze a moment longer than was comfortable. Thank you for saying it, I said. That's all there is. She shifted, relief and grief fighting in her face. He, Adrian, lost everything, she said as if confessing. He told me you did it to him. He did it to himself, I said. I just made sure it was written down. Brittany nodded, a small bow. Goodbye, she said. She turned and walked down the path, arms wrapped around herself, though the air had softened. I closed the door. Maya called from the kitchen. What's the capital of Kentucky? Frankfurt, I said, and went back to the stove. To the sauce, to the life that was learning its new sound. The signatures took 20 minutes. Patricia slid the papers across a conference table that smelled like wood polish and whispered arguments. I signed my name 4 times. 5. Across the hall in a separate room, Adrian did the same. When I stepped into the elevator, I expected tears to gather in my throat like rain at a curb. They didn't. The elevator doors closed with a hush, and in the mirrored walls I saw a woman standing straight, keys in one hand, phone in the other, each foot planted in her own gravity. Outside, traffic hissed. Somewhere, a jackhammer punctured earth. I walked to my car in a city that had not changed and found that I had. On the passenger seat, my phone buzzed. A text from Nicole. Lunch on me. We toast with fries. Fries are a food group, I replied. Scientifically proven, she shot back. I smiled, started the car, and turned toward the small habit of celebration. The next chapters, the business I hadn't allowed myself to imagine, the schooling I had left unfinished, the way a woman reintroduces herself to joy, were waiting like a stack of clean pages. And this time I would write them in ink. The morning after I signed my name into a new life, I cleaned the house the way you scrub a wound. Not delicately, not gently, thoroughly. I pulled sheets, opened windows, carried out boxes of things that were not mine and would never be again. I found cufflinks under the dresser and a movie stub in the coat closet that didn't belong to me. I put them all in a shoebox and left it on the porch like a lost and found for a man who no longer lived here. Maya drifted through the rooms with a child's merciful short memory. "It smells like rain in here," she said, standing in the hallway where the air moved at last. "It smells like fresh," I said. When she left for school, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and a legal pad and wrote one word at the top of a blank page: build. Before marriage turned my days into a reliable grid, I'd been halfway through an MBA. I'd pressed pause when Maya was born, and then the pause turned into a stop because life is good at convincing women that deferral equals love. I opened the university website and found a program I could finish online. Application deadline, 2 weeks. I made a checklist like I was already enrolled, transcripts, essays, references, and felt my brain stretch like a limb I'd forgotten how to use. I also wrote 2 other words: new beginnings. Underneath, I sketched the kind of business that had always followed me around parties and PTA fundraisers. Planning, logistics, design, the magic trick of turning a room into a memory. I'd done it for friends for free for years. The baby shower with paper peonies that made a florist take photos. The charity gala where the silent auction out-earned its goal because the flow of the room felt like permission to give. Why not get paid to do what I was already doing? I bought a domain, newbeginningsevents.com. I made a brand board with colors that looked like champagne at golden hour. Soft metal, warm light, a whisper of blush. I designed a simple logo and a one-page site with 3 packages, 2 photos, and 1 sentence of mission. We turned turning points into celebrations. "Are we opening a company?" Maya asked that night when she caught me choosing fonts at the table. "We are," I said. "It's ours." "Can I be vice president of glitter?" she asked. "You are uniquely qualified." The first client was Nicole's sister by force of Nicole's will. "If you say no," Nicole said, planting a box of macarons on my counter like a bribe, "I will stage a sit-in your foyer." "I don't even have a foyer," I said, laughing. "You have a doormat," she said. "Close enough. Hannah's bridal shower. She wants classic but not boring, which means she wants you." I priced myself so low my future self would call to scold me. Hannah cried happy tears at a surprise library-themed shower. Antique books stacked under peonies. Tiny place cards lettered like spine titles. A guest book made from a vintage card catalog drawer. "You should do this for a living," she said, hugging me. "I'm trying," I told her. She referred 3 friends. 2 of those friends referred more. I opened a business bank account. I got a city license. I made an Instagram page and posted only work. No face, no rage, no hints of the hospital night that had started the avalanche. People liked before and afters, time lapses of table settings, videos of twinkling lights warming a room. The algorithm did what algorithms do when a story looks uplifting without knowing the bruises under it. It lifted. In week 3, I hired part-time help, a recent grad named Kayla who had a spreadsheet brain and a florist's hands. "Why new beginnings?" she asked on her first day, labeling bins, candles, command hooks, emergency kit. "Because that's what people hire us for," I said. "Weddings, babies, retirements, launches. Endings disguised as arrivals." I didn't say because that's what I needed too. Frank called with the calm of a man whose job was to notice everything that hid in plain sight. "Hartman's internal has expanded," he said. "Compliance pulled expense records for a year. The pattern isn't a pattern. It's a confession. Dinners, hotels, flights. The BMW under client relations vehicle was the nail." "What happens now?" I asked. "They'll refer to the DA for charging. It won't be a felony if he makes restitution and pleads," Frank said. "White-collar first-timers don't usually see jail unless they're fools." Adrian called that night. I let the first call die unanswered, then picked up on the second to keep it from bleeding into the third. "Naomi," he said, "they want me to plead. They want restitution. I don't have it." "You have a car," I said. "You have a retirement account you hid. Sell something." "You took 70%, he said, biting off each word like he'd been practicing the line. "I took what the court gave me after you took what you weren't entitled to," I said. "You can be angry or you can be resourceful. I suggest resourceful. He exhaled a ragged breath. Maya, he said softer. I don't want her to. She's fine, I said. She has two parents who love her. One of them is learning about consequences. That's an education. This isn't who I am, he said, and I heard him trying to build a story we could both live with. This is who you were, I corrected. You can choose who you become. When I hung up, my hands trembled. Not from fear, not from grief, from relief. I had rehearsed confrontation so long in my head that it took the real thing to show me I could do it without collateral damage inside my chest. Business found its rhythm the way a river does. One booking, then two, then a current. We did a retirement party in a backyard strung with Edison bulbs, a corporate launch in a warehouse where we built a ribbon wall that turned into a photo booth, a baby shower where, at the last minute, the gender reveal balloon popped in my car and I was vacuuming confetti like an exorcism 5 minutes before guests arrived. I started to sleep through the night again. School, too. I wrote essays about leadership shaped by loss and submitted references who wrote about competence that had nothing to do with marriage. The acceptance email landed on a Wednesday. I read it 3 times to make sure it didn't change. Are we going to college? Maya asked when she saw me crying in the kitchen. We are, I said, laughing. We absolutely are. Nicole took me out for noodles and bought me a pen that felt too expensive to write grocery lists with. To new degrees, she toasted. To old friends, I said. On a slow Thursday in late spring, I met James. He wasn't a meet cute. He was a helper. His sister Andrea had booked us for her 30th birthday. Late blooming fancy, she'd said. And he came to the walkthrough because he owned a small audio company and promised to bring up lights that make a $50 cake look like a $500 cake. He was tall without making people feel short and moved like he made space for others. Dark skin, easy smile, and attention that didn't feel like a spotlight so much as a porch light, warm, steady, unblinking. You're Naomi, he said, extending a hand after I rattled off a list of outlets and a plea to keep cables taped down so tipsy guests couldn't trip on their own celebration. Guiltier, I said. He laughed. I'm James. I've heard rumors you can turn a community center into a ballroom. Lies, I said. I can turn a community center into a very confident community center. He grinned. That's a better slogan. We kept running into each other. At Andrea's rental appointment, at the venue the week of the party, at the grocery store where he offered to lift a case of sparkling water into my cart, and I said I had it before letting him help anyway, because it felt okay to accept the existence of gravity. At Andrea's party, he ran sound and I ran everything else. The lights did make the cake look expensive. The playlist made strangers dance with each other. Andrea cried when her mom gave a speech about raising a daughter who was now becoming her friend. After we loaded the last cart, he lingered by the double doors. Can I buy you coffee? He asked. I opened my mouth to say, not ready. What came out was, just coffee. Just coffee, he said, hands raised in peace. At the cafe 2 days later, I discovered his life had its own edges. A 13-year-old son named Jake who spent half his weeks with him, a divorce 4 years old that had rusted into something like cordiality, a business that paid the bills, and a dream to build a studio where neighborhood kids could learn music production for cheap. This is my first coffee date in 12 years, I admitted, stirring a drink I didn't need to stir. Then I've been promoted, he said, smiling, to gentle pace. I laughed. My shoulders dropped a fraction. We talked for an hour about sound and light and how celebrations are really about time. How to freeze it for a night so you can remember later who you were when that photo was taken. In the parking lot, he didn't lean in. He didn't ask for more. He said, I'd like to see you again. Like someone who knows that if a thing is good, it won't vanish if you look away. I said, me too, like someone's surprised by her own mouth. Adrian's case resolved the way Frank predicted. A plea, restitution, probation, community service. He took a sales job at a smaller firm and moved into a one-bedroom with a view of nothing picturesque, just the back of another building where other lives were happening too. He saw Maya on weekends. He started showing up on time with snacks she liked and stories about a man trying to be new. I kept our communications on an app that archived everything and practiced being polite the way you practice piano scales. Repetitive, imperfect, adequate for the song. Maya asked questions in a child's tense. Present, not past. Is Dad sad? She asked once after a visit. Sometimes, I said. Sometimes adults get sad when the story they were telling themselves ends. Are you sad? She asked. Sometimes, I said. But I'm also busy being happy. She considered this and nodded like I had explained weather. 3 months into New Beginnings, Kayla and I moved our supplies from my dining room to a shared studio space behind a floristry that smelled like green things. We painted one wall the color of almond milk and hung pegboards for tools. I framed the brand board because it felt like a promise you hang where you can't ignore it. Then an email arrived from someone named Melissa Turner at Lux Events magazine. Subject line, feature inquiry. I read it twice, then a third time the way you taste something you're not sure you deserve. We're profiling up-and-coming planners in the region. Your name came up repeatedly. We love your story. I flinched at that line, at the assumption that they knew it. I wrote back anyway. We scheduled a shoot and an interview. I cleaned the studio twice and hid the scuffed step stool. Melissa turned out to be the kind of journalist who could coax a story out of a stone. She asked about process and pricing, about why I used round tables for conversation, but long tables for shared family-style meals, about how to manage a mother-in-law who wanted more white roses than existed in the county. Near the end, she asked softly about the divorce. It was fairly public, she said. Do you think it changed how you work? It changed how I live, I said, which changed how I work. I learned you can't control what other people do. You can only control your response. I chose to respond by building. That's going to be a pull quote, she said, smiling. When the profile came out, the phone didn't stop. Inquiries, bookings, collaboration offers. A pharmaceutical company wanted us to theme a conference dinner without using pill imagery. A nonprofit hired us to turn a parking lot into a gala for foster families. A couple asked if we could plan a wedding in their backyard that felt like Italy without pretending it was Italy. We did it with olive branches and oranges and a string quartet that played Vivaldi and a Beyoncé cover during golden hour. You have to raise your rates, Nicole said, flipping through my calendar. Scarcity is data. I raised them. We got busier. I hired 2 more part-timers, one for logistics, one for design. I started blocking off Tuesday nights for schoolwork and stuck to it like church. You smile more, Maya observed one night, looking up from a book. Your eyebrows don't do the worry thing as much? Which thing? I asked. She wrinkled her face in a way that made me both laugh and never want to age. That thing, she said. I'm working on retiring that thing, I told her. James fit into our life like a well-made hinge. Support without squeak. When he picked me up for dinner once, Maya opened the door and looked him up and down like a TSA agent. Are you nice to my mom? She asked. I try to be, he said. Do you have kids? She asked. I do, he said. A son. He's 13. He eats cereal like it wronged him. Maya considered this. You may proceed, she declared, stepping aside. I mouthed sorry over her head. James shook his head, smiling. I like your head of security, he said. We took it slow by saying it out loud. We met for coffee after loadouts, learned each other's favorite songs to drive home to, compared battle scars, his from carrying subwoofers up 2 flights, mine from hauling lanterns at midnight in heels I should have taken off. When he reached for my hand on a walk by the river, I let him. When he kissed me on my porch, the air smelled like cut grass and something sweet from a neighbor's kitchen, and I didn't feel like I was betraying anyone. Not even the version of me who had once believed forever was a straight line. Adrian noticed, of course. Maya says you're seeing someone, he said one Sunday at drop-off. That's co-parenting information, I said. Not relational. Is it serious? It's respectful, I said. That's the only kind I allow now. He nodded, staring at his shoes. Is he good to you? Yes. Good, he said, and meant it with that complicated mix of regret and relief that comes when the person you wrong becomes someone else's happiness. 6 months after I opened a bank account with a logo that existed only in my head, New Beginnings had a wait list. We did 46 events and only had 2 candles drip wax onto linen. Kayla could pack a van in 12 minutes and label a crate in a handwriting that looked like order. I finished my first semester of the MBA with grades that affirmed I still had a mind I could use for more than triage. On a Saturday evening in late summer, we pulled off an outdoor wedding in a storm that kept threatening to be rude and then changed its mind at the aisle. During the father of the bride's speech, James caught my eye across the lawn, lifted a glass, and pointed subtly. One of our lantern clusters was leaning. I nodded and Kayla had it straight before the toast reached the part where everyone cried. Do you ever stop? James asked later, carrying 2 coils of bistro lights while I pulled tape off cords. I don't know how, I said. Maybe that's okay, he said. Maybe you just learn what for. When the lights were down and the last rented fork was accounted for, we stood on the grass under a sky that had finally decided to be gentle. You rebuilt a life, he said softly, like an observation, not a compliment. I'm still building, I said. The cement's wet in places. I can be careful where I step, he said. My throat did a small, foolish thing that felt like hope. I know, I said. There are moments that don't feel like milestones until later. The day Maya stood on a chair in the kitchen and iced cupcakes for a launch day party for my studio, she got more on the counter than on the cakes, and we ate them laughing. The afternoon I bought a dress with no practical purpose and wore it to the grocery store. The email from a venture firm asking to talk about expansion because your margins are excellent and your brand story is resonating. The fact that I said not yet instead of no because I no longer underpriced either. On a quiet weeknight, after Maya went to bed and the dishwasher hummed its mechanical lullaby, I stood in the doorway of my home office and looked at the corkboard where I'd pinned client timelines, school schedules, a quote that read, "What you do every day matters more than what you do once in a while." The house felt like itself, which is to say, it felt like mine again. My phone buzzed with a picture from Nicole, a martini and a caption to women who refuse to drown. I sent back the photo I'd just taken, Maya asleep with a book tented on her chest, and wrote, "To the reason we learned to swim." I turned off the light, walked down the hall, and paused in the doorway of my daughter's room the way mothers do even when nothing is wrong. Her breath measured the dark. Downstairs, my laptop waited with a spreadsheet that didn't scare me. Somewhere in the city, a man who used to be my husband was learning that shame and growth sometimes share a room for a while. Somewhere else, a man who might be my future was rinsing cables in his kitchen sink and texting me home. I picked up my phone and typed back, "Me too." I went to sleep without waiting for it to buzz. 2 weeks after the outdoor wedding that refused to be ruined by rain, Lux events landed on doorsteps and in inboxes. The cover line felt a little breathless. Rebuilding beautiful, the woman turning. Turning points into parties. But the photos were soft and luminous. My hands arranged peonies. A linen fell into place. The studio wall showed pegboards lined with tools like a tidy promise. The pull quote Melissa had warned me about sat beside a portrait I tolerated. You cannot control what people do. You can only control your response. I chose to build. The response came like weather rolling across a plain. Emails arrived from women who had stored their own stories in their throats for years. Corporate planners asked for your touch, fewer peonies. A local morning show called. A classmate from high school wrote to say she once thought I was too organized to be fun, then added 5 hearts. I answered what I could. I learned to say no without apology. I added a new line to our website. We take a limited number of events each season to protect quality and sanity. Add one more line, Nicole said, turning my laptop toward her. Rates available upon request. If they have to request, they are ready to pay. I laughed. Your inner capitalist is showing. So is your scarcity, she said. Charge like a woman who knows this is not a hobby. I raised our rates again. Bookings held. The waitlist grew. Kayla printed a sign for the studio. We are a small team doing big care. Thank you for your patience. People were patient mostly. Money helps patience grow. James texted a photo of his copy of the magazine with a coffee ring on it. Proof I really read it. He had underlined the sentence about control and building. Later, while we ate takeout on the back steps and Maya practiced soccer passes against the fence, he said, "You know what I love about that line? That it is overused," I said. "That it is not," he said. "You lived it before you said it. It is not a mantra. It is a map." The quiet that followed did not feel empty. It felt like the silence after you close a window during a storm. The house stops rattling. The ceiling stops dripping. You can hear your own breath again. Adrian's restitution checks began to arrive through the court. The co-parenting app became a polite hallway. Drop off, pick up, soccer times, school photos, dentist reminders. He stopped editorializing. I stopped composing replies I would never send. We kept the center clear for Maya. On a Tuesday that looked like old paper, he asked to talk in person. 5 minutes. Neutral ground. Patricia would have told me to keep it digital. Nicole would have offered to hide at the next table and live text me. I chose the bench outside the library where we used to take Maya for story hour. Plenty of people. No ghosts. He came in a thrift store suit that fit his new salary badly and carried a manila folder like a talisman. He looked thinner, or maybe the scaffolding of confidence he used to wear had been stripped away, and what remained looked smaller. "Thanks for meeting me," he said, hands in his pockets, posture of a student told to apologize and trying to mean it. "I have 20 minutes, I said. Maya has practice. I will not need all of it." He sat, left a full seat of air between us. "My plea is finalized," he said. "Probation, community service, restitution. I am sober now." He saw my eyebrow lift. "Not from alcohol, sober from lying. It is harder than I thought." I did not fill the space. Silence can be a tool. "I wanted to make a real apology," he said. "Not the frantic ones, not the transactional ones. I destroyed what we had. I betrayed you and robbed the life we were building, and then told myself a story where I was the lead who deserved more. I was a coward. When I think of how I looked at you and lied, I am ashamed." I waited. He let the words sit the way they needed to. "You did not do this to me," he said at last. "I did. You told the truth. You did not ruin my life. I did that. You exposed it." He swallowed. "I am sorry, not because I lost things, because of what I did to you." I looked at the small triangle of grass where Maya once learned to ride without training wheels. I thought of the woman who had measured capsaicin into a syringe with a surgeon's calm. I thought of the mother who had held her daughter while she cried about a family changing shape. "I forgive you," I said. His head jerked, as if the word had touched an exposed wire. "You do?" "Yes, not for you. For me." I stood. "We are done being enemies. We are simply two adults raising a child. Keep showing up on time. Keep telling the truth. That is the only amends that matters." He nodded. "Is he good to you?" he asked, eyes flicking up. "James. He is. Good." He meant it, an odd blend of regret and relief. "I will see you at practice." He walked away without looking back. I checked the time and headed to the field, lighter than I had felt in years. Forgiveness did not excuse. It emptied the room. Work kept expanding. We turned a parking lot into a gala for foster families. We built a ribbon wall that became a photo booth. We learned that a baby shower can be saved even if the gender reveal balloon pops in your car, as long as you own a vacuum with a long hose and nerves that do not fray in the last 5 minutes. We moved from my dining room into a shared studio behind a flower shop that smelled like stems and green water. School settled into its own rhythm. Tuesday nights were non-negotiable. Readings, case studies, discussion boards where I remembered how to build an argument that had nothing to do with survival. The acceptance letter still lived pinned above my desk, a small flag that read, "You can still be new to yourself." James threaded himself into our weeks like a well-made hinge. He helped when I forgot to ask. He stepped back when I needed space. He learned the inventory bins by heart and could find command hooks in the dark. When he picked me up for dinner, Maya opened the door and squinted like a small bouncer. "Are you nice to my mom?" she asked. "I try very hard," he said. "Do you have kids?" she asked. "A son, 13. He eats cereal like it did something to him." Maya considered. "You may proceed," she said, and stepped aside. I mouthed sorry. James shook his head and grinned. "I like your head of security." We kept it slow by naming it. Coffee after loadouts, walks by the river. Both of us had scars that were still tender. He asked before he reached for my hand. I said yes without feeling like I owed anyone an explanation. One afternoon, Melissa from the magazine emailed a follow-up. The feature was trending online. She wanted a short video tour of the studio. We filmed it in one take with Kayla laughing just off camera and me trying to keep glitter off my face. When it went up, a venture firm reached out. They wanted to talk about expansion. They used words like growth potential and franchise. The old me would have said no before the sentence ended. The current me scheduled a meeting, listened hard and said, "Not yet, not never, not yet. The cement is still wet in places." Nicole insisted on a tiny party to mark our first year. "You hate celebrating yourself," she said, "so I will do it for you." She brought cupcakes with edible gold leaf and wrote a toast on a napkin. "To paper that turned chaos into lines you could act on," she read. "To the woman who turned pepper into a plan." Maya lifted her juice glass. "To Mom, who smiles more now." Everyone cheered. I pretended not to cry and failed. 2 months later, at Maya's soccer championship, I ran into Adrian again. We had perfected minimal contact. Schedules and confirmations, nothing else. He looked steadier. He had a job that did not require a suit and wore a plain button-down. When the game ended, he walked over. "Congratulations to her," he said. "She played with courage." "She did," I agreed. "I heard about the article and the wait list," he said. "I am proud of you." "Thank you." "And James," he said, eyes on the field. "Is it serious?" "It is respectful and kind." He nodded. "That is serious." He took a breath. "I still care about you," he said, then corrected himself. "I care that you are safe and happy. That is the right shape for it." "That is the only shape that fit," I said. We stood in a silence that felt like a hallway instead of a wall. Then he waved to Maya, promised to text about next weekend, and left. That night, James came over for dinner. He helped Maya with a model of tectonic plates while I made garlic butter in a pan that had seen better days. After we ate, the kids went upstairs to start homework and probably talk. James dried the last plate and set the towel down. "How did it feel?" he asked, seeing him today. "Clean," I said. "Like closing a chapter." "Are you ready to open another one?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. My heart did something that could have been fear years ago. It felt like certainty now. He opened the box. A simple diamond caught the kitchen light. "I know fast can be reckless," he said. "This is not that. This is careful. This is steady. I would like to spend the rest of my life protecting the peace you fought for. Will you marry me?" I looked at the ring. I looked at James. I looked at the life we had built out of honest days. A year ago, marriage would have felt like a trap. Now it felt like a promise I could make to myself as much as to him. "Yeah, Ron," I said. He slipped the ring on my finger and kissed me. Upstairs, 2 kids who were definitely eavesdropping screamed. They thundered down the stairs, wrapped us in the kind of hug that makes you believe in silly things like fate. "Does this mean we are a real family now?" Jake asked. "We have been a family," as I said. "This just makes it official." Later, after the house went quiet, I stood in the doorway of my bedroom and looked at the woman in the mirror. She was not the woman who counted condoms on a bed and measured revenge with a plastic syringe. She was the woman who built a company, finished a degree, learned to forgive, and chose love without losing herself. She had lines around her eyes that came from laughing, not crying. She had a different posture, not braced for impact, simply upright. My phone buzzed. Nicole, of course. "I heard the news. I am planning this wedding. Do not argue." I laughed and texted back that I would let her fight Kayla for that honor. I turned off the light and crossed the room. The ring flashed once in the dark like a lighthouse, not a siren. I slid under the covers, listened to the small sounds of a house that belonged to me, and felt gratitude settle like a blanket. 14 months after I found a black box in a briefcase, my life had become something I could not have sketched in those first cold hours. New Beginnings had a full calendar and a small team that felt like family. The NBA transcript held a perfect row of letters I had not seen since before Maya was born. My daughter was thriving. The man who had hurt me was learning to be a better father. The man who loved me now understood that love is not a performance, but a practice. Sometimes a life does not break. It sheds a skin. Sometimes a home is not rebuilt. It is aired out, scrubbed clean, and filled with better light. I closed my eyes and began to dream about a ceremony in a garden with lanterns that did not lean, with a playlist that knew when to swell and when to hush, with vows that sounded like truth. The storm had moved on. The quiet that remained was not empty. It was mine.